Welcome back to Building Data Science. Why is statistics so important in data science? This is what I wanted to get into today. In fact, I have a question for you. In the data science lifecycle, where does statistics become important? It might seem like a simple question, but you'll be surprised how much people struggle to understand the importance and understand where that importance comes into play. When we think of the data science lifecycle, I'm not going to try and go too deep into it. In the previous episode, I spoke about the data science lifecycle. And then on the first episode, where I spoke about what is data science, I briefly spoke about it in an introductory way. So then the last episode I did was building off of that. So I'd really prefer you check that first episode, then you go see the sixth episode, then you come back if you don't understand where we are. So I'm not going to go too deeply into that, but I'm going to glaze and go quickly over that, assuming you understand the data science lifecycle. Statistics begins to pop up and show its importance at various stages of the data science lifecycle. One of the first things where you start to understand is at the beginning, where when we start the data science lifecycle, you find what happens is we do something called gathering requirements. So you must understand that this is all in regards to a business. Then you start gathering the requirements, right, to solve a business problem. So you could say that you build a problem statement, and then you start gathering the requirements on how to solve that. Now, when you say gathering requirements, who is that? Now, this is where you find a data science team comes into play. Now, based on the business requirements, there are different members in the data science team who will be working together in collaboration. So you could say the first step of the data science lifecycle is about collaboration in order to build the problem statement and to find how to solve the problem statement, right? There are other things that come into play, things like you're going to now start understanding that what the life cycle means, what solving this problem does, and how you're going to go about it. But remember, now we're talking about how statistics comes into play in all of this according to the business life cycle, right? Now, when you think about the business life cycle, we can say that statistics comes into play in four main areas, and I'm going to get into that. So one of the areas it starts to show in stats, in EDA, right? Another area, I'll just put it here, is something called feature engineering. The fourth one is feature selection. And then the fifth one is it starts to show in ML. So stats in ML, right? Now, I think I can use this other one. No, I'll use this one. Okay, so now when you start to think about it, right? Statistics in EDA. Firstly, what's EDA? EDA is, I'll say it's, you're trying to understand the data. Now, you're trying to find patterns, you're trying to find trends, and you're trying to find outliers. So things that don't match in your data set. Remember, you're trying to understand the data. So this is called exploratory data analysis, right? Now, when you think about it, statistics is actually broken up into two main, I won't say field, I'll say fields, that would be easier to say. So it's broken up into two main fields. So one is called inferential statistics. Then the second is called descriptive. Now, I'll speak about inferential stats here. Just to make it easier. Now, descriptive stats, right, is actually how it's described, right, is you're organizing, you're summarizing, and you're visualizing data. Now, if you think about this description, it's a really good description for what EDA is. You're organizing, you're summarizing, and you're visualizing the information at play, right? Now, when you think about it, right, there are ideas in statistics which become so important, right? Now, these ideas in descriptive stats, because you could say that statistics in EDA were using the descriptive stats. Now, in descriptive stats, there's something called measure of central tendency. So it's called measure of central tendency. Then there's also measure of dispersion. Now, these two concepts, right, they stem and bring these ideas. Central tendencies bring something called mean, your average, your mode, frequency, and your median. And then measure of central of dispersion actually brings something called variance and standard deviation, right? Now, I won't go too deep into variance and standard deviation, but it's very important that people understand to say, okay, this measure of central tendency, which is from this descriptive statistics, how is it used in exploratory data analysis, right? So it's very important that you understand ideas on a foundational level, so that when they're now given at higher levels of abstraction, you can be able to understand where they're coming from and what they actually mean. What am I trying to say? When you don't understand the ideas on a foundational level or where the ideas come from, you find yourself having an issue similar to one which I had. I had an issue which a lot of the times, right, when we're actually speaking of how do we understand the data, let me give an example with outliers. When we say how do we understand the data, I would find myself performing or trying to understand the data using EDA. And part of the tools that we use for understanding the data is we use Python. So I was going through a data set and I was trying to read and check up documentation to understand how do I go about doing EDA. And part of the issues that I had was I would come across something called a box plot. Now, I'm not sure if you know what a box plot is, but this is how it looks. Now, they would take the Python, do a calculation or do a formula, and then it would then visualize the information as a box plot. Now, when I would see the box plot, I would be confused to say, okay, what is going on? What does this mean? And how does this regard to outlier detection? Now, when you actually think about it, or when you actually start to understand, is that the box plot stems from something, a concept in statistics called a 5-number summary. The 5-number summary, you start with something called your min, your Q1, your median, your Q3, and your max. Your minimum, this is your minimum value. Your Q1, I'll just say 25%. It's not the exact, but let's just say to make it easier. Your median is your halfway. So you could say your 50%. And your Q3 is your 75%. Then your maximum value. There's something which comes in, I think it's called the interquartile range. But like I said, we're not getting into statistics now. But let's say, for example, you have a massive amount of financial data and you want to understand your data more to find something that stands out or something that is irregular. You're looking for an outlier, right? Your box plot actually takes all this massive amount of financial information. Then it will put the information. I'm not sure if the financial information is a great example, but let me just roll with it. So you say you start with this line is actually your minimum. This line is your Q1. This line is your median. This line is your Q3. And this line is your max. So immediately it will take all the information that you have and put it in a box plot. And that box plot will immediately show you your minimum, your Q1, your medium, your Q3, and your max. So you have your information shuffled and put organized, right? You have your information organized and summarized, and you'll be visualizing that information in a box plot, but can immediately tell you that something is right or wrong. For example, if let's say your graph shows here, so it doesn't actually show here. So immediately you can see that the max is high compared to your Q3, your minimum, your Q1, and your minimum. So this is how you can be able to find outliers. That's just an important point which people can need to understand, right? When we're talking about things like, I think that talks about stats in EDA quite well. When we're talking about things like feature engineering is whether when you're looking at information and you're looking at which set of information is critical in order to solve the problem. So you've built your problem statement, you're going through your information, and based on your information, which information or which criteria is paramount for understanding your information. So that part of picking what to take, what to lose, that's called feature engineering. It's a dumbed down explanation, but I think it's a really good way of explaining it in context of everything that we have here, right? Now, when you say, okay, things like, for example, missing missing values. If you have missing values, categories, all of these ideas, you find statistics has got concepts which are then translated into the data science process that you use to solve this problem in the feature engineering section. To say, okay, how do you handle this? How do you do this? That part becomes so important, right? Remember now when we're speaking about feature selection, right? That's something that I spoke about to say, okay, now when you're picking which value are you using? Now are you saying, okay, which values are you using? That's when now inferential statistics comes from. Now, if you remember, I didn't actually explain what inferential statistics is. Now, inferential statistics, right, is using um, using measured values to form a conclusion. So this hypothesis testing. So the idea of using your measured values to form a conclusion, right? This part in feature selection where you're doing hypothesis testing, what are critical factors based on your problem statement? What's worth keeping? What's not worth keeping? How do you do it? There's something called feature importance, critical idea. Confidence intervals also comes into play. Z test. There's something called pi squared test, or is it pi square test? I think I'm mixing it up. But all these ideas now start to come across and come in, you know. There's something called elimination techniques, a backward elimination technique, a forward elimination technique. I'm not trying to go through names to confuse you, but I'm just saying that already these ideas now start to be used in the actual process when you're actually building and going through the data science life cycle. Remember, if you don't understand the life cycle, you just need to go and look at that previous video. Then this will give more context. The last one is where you find stats in building machine learning models. Things like linear regression. These are models that directly stem from statistics. So some of the algorithms, some of the maths, underlying maths in some of the, you would say, classical machine learning models are built from statistics. And that's where these ideas now come across. So you find that the value of statistics is something which becomes so important to understand, because whichever role that you're working in at certain stages of the data science life cycle, you begin to fall into. Now, when you fall into that stages of the life cycle, you could find not having that underlying understanding of statistics will now begin to rob you of being an effective team member, and will also rob you of progress. So this is where it becomes important. I'm going to try and build more episodes on statistical concepts, try and go through some calculus, some algebra, but I'll try and focus a lot on the statistics so that some of the ideas that I know have been critical for me, that people can be able to reference and go further in, right? Some of the other things I'm going to put links, so that people can be able to understand exactly where this is coming and where this is going, and also people who've gone a bit more depth in the statistical concepts and how they relate to machine learning and data science. I think that's it.